This week, on the record, Kara Spencer wins in a landslide. Mayor Jones survives the primary to advance to the runoff, the latest in the race for the mayor of St. Louis. President Trump addresses Congress, and Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski responds. And the Missouri Senate strikes a deal, but leaves town for the weekend before seizing state control of the St. Louis Police Department. Where does that leave voters as they contemplate changes at City Hall? Two top senators leading the debate are on the record. It's all coming up right now. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. A bill that would place St. Louis City Police under state control survived a 10-hour filibuster led by Democrats in the state Senate. That bill was successfully passed through the House, and this week senators altered it just a bit. One of the biggest changes, Governor Mike Kehoe would now appoint whomever he wants to a panel of commissioners that would oversee SLMPD instead of picking from a pool of candidates put there by police unions. Democratic senators fought to add some of those changes, making sure that those appointees would later be confirmed by the Senate. Joining us now from the road is Senator Carla May from St. Louis, of course, who opposed the state takeover of the city police department. And Senator, I appreciate you joining us in between your travels here, but can you give us an update on where things stand? It looks as though, if we see this press release accurately from Senator Roberts, your colleagues, that Democrats are now considering perhaps supporting this measure.
Well, this is one Democrat that will never support takeover of the police department by the state. We did perfect the bill last night, but that does not mean that there is any factual evidence to support the action that is being taken by the General Assembly and the governor.
So in Senator Roberts' statement that he understands why other Democrats might consider this, and he seems to say that Mayor Jones has lost her I think he just said she's not a credible person in the Senate eyes anymore. It looks as though he's giving the green light for some of your colleagues to no longer stand and filibuster or block this thing. Is that just the political reality with a Senate Republican supermajority?
Well, I'm not sure why Senator Roberts made his statement, but I have been working in conjunction with the mayor's office and her staff on trying to make this bill palatable, because the first version of the bill was very egregious, and we were trying to make some changes to the bill. And so we worked together, got those changes written up, and I presented those changes on Tuesday morning to the governor and the president pro tem of the Senate, because I realized after having much conversation that we didn't have the votes to stop the bill from moving forward.
Joining us now after that compromise deal was reached is Senator Nick Schroer, who sponsored the bill in the Senate. Good to have you with us. Senator, what's the rush here? The voters of St. Louis are right now deciding who should control the police department, and on April 8th, they might make a change. You have until May for session to conclude. Why not wait and see if the voters want to make a change before you force their hand?
Well, I think the voters of the state have made it clear, the voters of St. Louis have made it clear that they do want to change. Back in November, when they elected many strong Republicans, including Mike Kehoe, who indicated this is a top priority of his, changing how the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department is managed, listening to 98% of listening to all of the police, but in the most recent poll, 98% of them have indicated they need this bill to pass so they can have competitive salaries, have the tools necessary to do their jobs in decreasing crime and allowing for businesses and tourism and people to come back to the St. Louis region. But three, to have somebody that's going to listen to them and work with them, not against them. So, this is something we've been working on for at least 5 years now. I've had it for 5 years. I know others have had it in the past, but the Ethical Society of Police, the Fraternal Order of Police, and the Police Officers Association have been screaming from the rooftops that they need help. And even though the voters in the city of St. Louis made their voices loud and clear by an overwhelming majority of them voting for Kara, who has indicated, look, the mismanagement of the city as a whole needs to change. I think that just, shows us exactly where we need to be, and that's with this compromise deal that we passed out of the Senate this week.
Will you grade the success or failure of the state takeover of the police department on the city police department growing or shrinking?
Well, I think that's got to be part of it. That's got to be one of the calculus in seeing if this is going to work. And in 5 years from now, if we're continuing to deplete population, if crime is not getting under control, if there's no transparency with the crime statistics, then yeah, we've got a huge problem on our hands. But arguably, I think the community leaders that are going to be on this board, getting confirmed by the Senate, working with the Senate, working with police, and the police knowing that yes, they're going to have raises. That's why that we built in that mechanism of the funding language. But you're going to have people that have your back, not only in St. Louis City but in Jefferson City as well. I think this is a start to something that our state truly needs.
All right, Senator Nick Shore, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
While we were watching local election results come in Tuesday night, President Donald Trump delivered an address to Congress, pushing Republicans to turn his agenda into law. It was the longest speech of its kind in modern history, and at times resembled more of a campaign speech than a policy outline. The 90-minute speech praising the work of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency and slamming the Biden administration.
We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. We'll be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them.
In that chamber, Republicans constantly cheering Trump's taunts of Democrats, while some Democrats held up protest signs, one even escorted out of the chamber. Representative Nikki Budzinski is now on the record. Congresswoman Budzinski, thanks for joining us. I want to start by just getting your overall reaction to the entire speech. It was the longest we've ever heard from a president to a joint session of Congress. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was short on details as far as how we are going to make things more affordable for the constituents that I represent in Central and Southern Illinois. You know, I really believe that President Trump won in November in large part because he said he was going to bring down the cost of things like gas and groceries, everyday expenses. Again, I have not seen since day one his focus on that. There was no real focus on that last night in his speech. What I did hear is a lot of talk about tariffs. I'm very concerned about tariffs, representing a district that is very rural, very agricultural based. I believe in the potential for using tariffs strategically if that's going to help American workers and American manufacturing. But this sledgehammer approach, putting on a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexican goods, is just going to raise costs even more. And so I'm really frustrated by the fact that I think we didn't get down to those details. I thought it was a hyper partisan speech with little as it relates to real solutions that are going to help people in their everyday lives.
Did Congress make a mistake in giving a president such wide latitude to set tariffs?
Well, that's within his purview. Look, I think that Democrats and Republicans could come together on an issue like tariffs if it was able to be used, again, strategically. When you look at China and you look at the trade deficits that we have and the monopoly they have on some industries, it's within our national security, I believe, to impose some strategic tariffs on countries like China when we're trying to get a foothold on our own manufacturing here back home, whether that relates to manufacturing in iPhones, manufacturing in some of our more solar panels, things like that. We need to be able to reclaim some of that territory and manufacturing. But when you're looking at trade, again, from a perspective where we have a fair trading partner like Canada, and you're imposing a 10% tariff on all energy imports, and we're importing a lot of that energy into our country, we're going to see prices go up. So look, I don't agree with the way the president has approached this. I think Democrats and Republicans could come together on tariffs, but that's not what's being proposed.
A lot more of my conversation with Congresswoman Budzinski up online at ksdk.com. We also invited multiple Republican members of Congress from our area on to respond to President Trump's speech. Their press teams all said they were unavailable to go on camera. Some did share statements, however. We got one from Congressman Mike Bost, who said President Trump's address tonight sent a powerful message that America First wasn't just a campaign slogan, it forms the governing philosophy of his second term. Before the speech, Congresswoman Ann Wagner posted this online, saying in part, "We're ready to work with President Trump as we fight to secure our southern border, stem the deadly flow of fentanyl into our communities, and make America strong again on the world stage." Her team also said she was not available for an interview after the address. If you want your member of Congress to come on this program and answer questions, call them. Let them know. We'll be right back. The St. Louis mayor's race is officially down to a rematch from 4 years ago, but the incumbent doesn't have nearly the same advantage she did then. Alderwoman Kara Spencer got twice as many votes as Mayor Tashara Jones in this Tuesday's primary. Spencer came away with more than 23,000 voters, while Jones got just a bit more than 11,000. At a watch party, Jones rallied her base to get out and activate.
See, my opponent says she wants to take us back to basics, but I say we're not going back. We will keep knocking doors, we will keep making phone calls, and we will keep calling out the lies and misinformation whenever and wherever we see it. And I need everyone here to commit right now to keep this energy going. We need you to knock doors, and if you can't do that, we need you to make phone calls. And if you can't do that, we need everybody to donate.
This campaign, being mayor, is so much bigger than potholes and trash. It is the visible reminders that we're not working as well as we can, that we should, that we all deserve our city to work. But this campaign, these next 4 years will be about so much more than potholes and trash. That is not the goal. The goal is to make St. Louis thrive.
For several days now, the city of St. Louis has been able to digest the results of Tuesday night's primary election, and it was a landslide. Kara Spencer winning by a wide margin, 68% approval across the city. Mayor Jones in a distant second with 33%. But interestingly, just a few hours before polls closed, one of our reporters caught up with Mayor Jones, and she said this.
What I would like to see tweaked in future elections is in the first round, that if someone wins by like a really large percentage, then maybe not a second round.
Joining us now is our political analyst and expert, Anita Mannion. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Do you think Mayor Jones wishes she had that statement back?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the polling sort of indicated that Spencer had the lead, but she even won with a bigger margin than expected. So yeah, Mayor Jones might wish she could take that clip back.
And just a few days before the election, a Remington research poll said Kara Spencer might be at 51%, Mayor Jones at 34%. And we asked Mayor Jones about the poll. She goes, "Oh, I always outperform those things. They always miss my supporters." And it was the other way around. She underperformed, and Kara added 17 points to her poll totals.
Yeah, I think approval voting also makes the polling a little challenging because people can vote for more than one candidate. So if in the polling you just choose one, but when you cast your ballot you choose more than one, it can make those numbers a little different.
I won't ask you to get out your crystal ball because I know predictions are always tough in this environment. But I do know that advisors to Mayor Jones were saying just a few days before the polls opened, well, if we can, we don't think we're going to win, but if we can get within 10 or 15 points, we'll be competitive, and we think we can close the gap over that 5-week span. They got blown out by 35.
They sure did.
Is that an insurmountable lead?
I mean, like you said, it's hard to make predictions, and these local races are very low turnout, so if Mayor Jones can really spark a constituency to come out, she could close that gap, but I'd much rather be in Kara Spencer's position than Mayor Jones.
Yeah, and how do you evaluate the breakdown? We saw Kara Spencer win 10 of the city's 14 wards. Mayor Jones win 4, but barely. In the 14th ward, she won by just one vote. So Alderman Rasheen Aldridge might have been the deciding vote. We'll see if we can get him on the record soon and figure out which way he's leaning in this race officially. But it's interesting that in parts of North City, Kara Spencer gave her a contest a lot closer. In South City, it was a blowout.
Right. Yeah, I think that, you know, looking at the mayor's race and the comptroller's race, it's an indicator that people in St. Louis City are kind of fed up right now and want to see a change in leadership. We saw 2 incumbents lose. And so I think that's a good sign for Kara Spencer and other challengers.
What does it tell you as an expert and somebody who watches these campaigns if candidate 1 is training their fire on candidate 2's donors? Mm-hmm. What does it tell you about the line of attack there?
Yeah, we actually saw both Tashara Jones and Kara Spencer kind of attack donors, with Tashara Jones saying that, Kara Spencer's getting these big money donors and donors who have contributed to conservatives and others, and Kara Spencer sort of attacking Mayor Jones for going outside of the St. Louis area to get contributions. I will tell you, colleagues and I did a research study on St. Louis City mayoral elections, and one thing that we found is that Black women get smaller dollar donation than Black men, or white women, and they also have to go out of state and tap other networks to get campaign contributions, so that actually wasn't surprising to me.
I know that low voter turnout bothers you.
Of course it does.
What's the pitch? How do you get them out to the polls?
Well, one good thing is now we have 2 weeks of early in-person voting, so if you can't make it out on April 8th, you've got 2 weeks beforehand to try to go cast that ballot. Hardly anyone votes in these elections, so there's no line. You can get right in and out. And your vote is actually more impactful. If we only have 18% of people voting, like you said, in a particular ward, it could be decided by 1 vote. So your vote's much more impactful now than it was back in November.
Anita Mania, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How many times would you let someone lie to you before you stop believing them? That's the story of the boy who cried wolf, right? At some point, you stop believing the lie. The first time you might scream fire in a crowded theater, yeah, maybe it's a spectacle. People run for the exits, all chaos everywhere. Could be great for a headline, right? The next time you do it, though, yeah, that starts to get old pretty quick. But here's the thing, it can work. Those kinds of tactics, they grab your attention, at least for a minute. So let's check the record real quick. At the turn of the 20th century, sensationalism dominated the newsstand. Headlines like this one: vigilantes hunt down a band of baby murderers. It sold like wildfire. Joseph Pulitzer's New York World and William Randolph Hearst's New York Journal, they didn't care much about the truth. They cared about ratings. Facts were secondary. And it worked until the sinking of the USS Maine. Both papers ready to pounce, blaming Spain without much in the way of proof. And, well, war broke out. Maybe that infamous era of yellow journalism didn't start the war, but it sure set stage for panic to spread. Fast forward a century, much the same story. A lot of same media errors. The Iraq War was sold with misleading intelligence and fear-mongering headlines, but this time, instead of making the adjustments that Pulitzer later did in his career to pull back on scare tactics and focus on facts and context, some politicians tapped into the rage, filled that void, discredited the entire press, and then started selling stuff so bizarre the National Enquirer wouldn't print it. If we were right to be enraged at bad information back then why would we accept it in a more entertaining or partisan package now? That's what we saw this week when President Donald Trump told America that Social Security was being marauded by an army of 150-year-olds. The president claimed there were 1.3 million mythical people between 150 and 159 years old, and another 130,000 people older than 160 collecting benefits. Oh yeah, and one guy at 360 years old. Right, because in the same year Isaac Newton was discovering gravity, some innovative fortune teller was scheming how to defraud a government that didn't exist yet. All right, let's break this down. First, it's not true. The Social Security Administration doesn't have 360-year-olds collecting checks, obviously. What it does have is imperfect records and old databases that sometimes miss a data point here or there, maybe the date that someone died. Now, financial mismanagement or poor record keeping, those are real issues. But out of $8.6 trillion in Social Security benefits over a 7-year span, the government had an accuracy rate of 99.2%. Hey, imagine if our politicians had a 99% accuracy rate. Still, just about 1% of that was improper. And guess what? Most of those mistakes were overpayments to living people, not to pirate ghosts who sailed the Mayflower. But which story is more exciting there? An Excel spreadsheet that's just missing the date someone died, or colonial-era zombies coming back to haunt us and rob us blind to pay for their powdered wigs? Look, boring stories about bureaucrats finding the needle in their haystack and then going about their job to fix it, it doesn't drive clicks. It doesn't get hype. You know how we know? Because the AP wrote this story back during the Biden administration when the government was already fixing the problem. The Treasury clawed back $31 million from people who were very much alive and continued working to recover more overpayments. You just never heard about it because it wasn't wrapped in a comic book strip with exaggerated embellishments. Here's the real fraud. We've been down this road before. We've watched the same exaggerations, the same theatrics designed to create fear and make us panic. Whether it's dead voters, inflated economic doom, or now Rip Van Winkle swiping our Social Security, these are distractions. They're not real answers. What really matters is integrity, accountability, and honesty. Yes, from the press and from people in power. Because when we let leaders lie over and over again to us, eventually we stop believing everything they say. So here's the real question. Why accept a lie from your president when you wouldn't accept one from a tabloid? That's all of our time this week. We're back at the same time next week. And until then, we're off the record.